think you can fool everyone? Not anymore! This is over!
There are moments of public humiliation that people who witness them never fully forget. Not because they're dramatic in the way that fights or arguments are dramatic, but because they're specific. Because they contain within them a particular cruelty that tells you everything you need to know about the person who committed them and the relationship that produced them. On a Friday evening in September, at a charity gala in a ballroom in Houston, Texas, a man named Derek reached across the table in front of 200 guests, in front of colleagues and friends and family members, and in front of the woman he had been having an affair with for 11 months. And he snatched his wife's wig from her head and held it up and said, loud enough for the table to hear, that she needed to stop pretending she was something she was not. His wife, whose name was Nicole, sat perfectly still for approximately 3 seconds. Then she reached across the table, picked up her water glass, took a slow, deliberate sip, set it back down, and looked at her husband with the expression that people who were at that table have spent months since trying to find the right word to describe. The closest anyone has come is this. She looked at him like she had already made a decision. She left the gala 20 minutes later. She did not cry on the way out. She did not make a scene. She had her phone out before she reached the parking lot. And 3 months later, Derek did not have a company, a house, a reputation, or a single business relationship that Nicole's name had not touched. Stay with me. Before we go any further, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We would love to hear from you. And if you're not already subscribed to Behind the Lie, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on the notification bell so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Now, let us go back to the beginning. Because to understand what happened in that ballroom on that Friday evening in September, and to understand what Nicole did in the 3 months that followed, you need to understand the full architecture of the life she had built and the specific way in which Derek had been standing inside that architecture for 12 years without ever fully understanding what it was or who had constructed it. You need to understand Nicole before the gala. You need to understand what she had built and why she had built it, and what it meant that the man who had benefited from every brick of it had chosen a Friday evening in September in a room she had spent 8 weeks designing to reach across a table and take something from her head in front of 200 people and hold it up like it was proof of something. Because it was proof of something, just not the thing he thought it was. Nicole had grown up in a working-class neighborhood in Houston, Texas, the eldest of 4 children raised by a mother who worked 2 jobs for 22 years, and who communicated to her children, not through speeches or declarations, but through the simple, sustained evidence of her own daily life, that the only security worth having was the kind you built yourself. Her mother had worked as a home health aide during the day and as a cashier at a grocery store 3 evenings a week, and she had done it without complaint and without waiting for someone to come and change the terms of her situation, and Nicole had absorbed this the way children absorb the most important lessons their parents teach, which is without knowing they're absorbing it completely and permanently. She had been making floral arrangements since she was 14 years old, helping her aunt with the flower orders for their church's Sunday services and holiday events. And she had discovered in that work a precision and a creativity and a satisfaction that she had not found in anything else she had tried. She had studied business administration at a state university in Texas on an academic scholarship and a part-time job, and she had graduated with the focused intention of a woman who knew exactly what she was going to do with what she had learned, which was to build something of her own in the industry she had loved since she was 14. She had started her event design and floral company from a folding table in her mother's garage in the year she turned 26, with $400 in savings and a client list that consisted of 3 church acquaintances who had agreed to let her do their events for a reduced rate in exchange for being allowed to photograph the work for her portfolio. That was the beginning. What came after it is the story of 18 years of a woman building something extraordinary in the particular way that people build extraordinary things, which is one decision at a time, one client at a time, one problem solved, and one relationship maintained, and one sleepless night before a major event, and one morning getting up and doing it again for 18 years, until the thing she had built was worth far more than the $400 and the folding table and the 3 church acquaintances who had trusted her at the beginning. By the time this story reaches its turning point, Nicole's company had 14 full-time employees and a client list that included some of the most significant corporate events and charity galas and high-end weddings in the Houston market. She has been featured in 3 regional publications. Her annual revenue had grown consistently for 7 consecutive years. She had a waiting list for new clients. She had a reputation that had been built not through advertising or social media campaigns, but through the oldest and most durable form of business development, which is doing excellent work for people who tell other people about it, over and over for long enough that the reputation becomes self-sustaining. She had built all of it, every relationship, every contract, every creative decision, every logistical solution to every problem that a business producing large-scale events inevitably produces. She had done it while being married to Derek. She had done it while running a household. She had done it while managing a medical condition that had caused significant hair loss over the previous 2 years, a condition she had managed with the same practical efficiency with which she managed everything, by finding a solution that worked and implementing it and not making it a subject of conversation in professional settings because her medical situation was her business and not anyone else's. The wig was part of that solution. It was not a secret. It was a private matter that she had chosen to keep private, which is a distinction that every person in that ballroom would have understood if Derek had thought for a single moment about anything other than himself and the woman sitting across the table watching him perform for her approval. Derek was 47 years old and worked as a commercial contractor who had built a modest construction business in Houston that handled renovation and build-out projects for commercial clients. He was presentable and confident and had, in 12 years of being married to Nicole, developed the particular ease of a man who has a good life and has not spent very much time examining where it came from. His business was real. He had built it himself, in the sense that he had done the work and made the decisions and managed the projects. But the trajectory of his business, the specific clients and relationships and referrals that had shaped its growth, had been significantly influenced by Nicole's professional network in ways that Derek had understood at the time each introduction or referral was made and had subsequently filed in the same category, where people file the ongoing gifts of their partner's love and effort, which is the category of things that are so consistently present they begin to feel like simply the condition of one's life rather than the result of someone else's sustained and specific investment. 8 of his 12 current commercial contracts had originated through Nicole's client relationships. The venue where his most significant ongoing renovation project was located had hired him specifically on Nicole's recommendation after Nicole's company had been producing events there for 4 years. The office space where Derek's contracting business operated was leased at favorable terms through a property management company whose principal was a longtime client of Nicole's who had extended those terms as a professional courtesy. Derek knew all of this in the way that people know things that are convenient to know and inconvenient to fully reckon with. He had received the benefit of it for 12 years without ever having a clear-eyed conversation with himself about what it meant and what it would mean if it were removed. The woman who was sitting at that gala table on the Friday evening in September, the woman Derek had been having an affair with for 11 months, was a 36-year-old marketing consultant named Jasmine. She had been introduced to Derek through a mutual business contact at a networking event 8 months before the gala, and 6 months into the relationship that Derek had told her was not really a marriage anymore, that the formality of ending it was simply a matter of finding the right time, that she just needed to be patient a little longer. Jasmine had been patient. She had believed what she had been told. Not because she was naive, but because the version of Derek she had been shown was a version that had been carefully curated to support the story he needed her to believe. She had not known the full picture of Nicole's professional life or Nicole's professional network or the degree to which Derek's comfortable existence was built on a foundation that Nicole had constructed and Nicole maintained. She had been given, as people who become involved with married partners are routinely given, a portrait that served the painter rather than the subject. She would revise her understanding of the portrait comprehensively in the weeks after the gala. But on that Friday evening in September, she was sitting across a ballroom table from a woman she did not fully know and a man she had not fully understood, watching something happen that she would spend a considerable amount of time afterward wishing she had not witnessed. The gala where all of this happened was not a random venue or a random event. It was the annual fundraising dinner for a Houston Children's Hospital Foundation that had been one of Nicole's anchor clients for 6 consecutive years. Nicole's company had designed a room. The floral centerpieces on every table, white and pale gold arrangements that had taken her lead designer 2 days to complete. The lighting plan that made the chandeliers look like they were suspended in amber. The table linens and the place settings and the stage backdrop and the entrance arrangement that guests had walked through when they arrived. Nicole had managed the vendor relationships and the setup schedule and the 11 separate last-minute problems that had required her attention between 6 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon on the day of the event. She had been at the venue for 10 hours before she went home to get dressed and come back as a guest. She had sat down at a table in a room she had built and picked up a menu she had consulted on the design of and accepted a glass of water poured by a catering staff she had coordinated with the previous week. And Derek had sat across from her, and Jasmine had sat at the same table through a coincidence of seating that nobody had planned and nobody had anticipated. And the evening had proceeded with the surface warmth and professional cordiality of a charity event full of people who were there to be seen being generous and who understood the social requirements of the occasion. Nicole had not known, when she sat down at that table, who Jasmine was to Derek. She had met Jasmine briefly at a previous industry event and had no specific association with her beyond a name and a face in a professional context. What she understood over the course of the 45 minutes between her arrival at the table and the moment Derek reached across, it was arrived at not through dramatic revelation, but through the accumulated evidence of small specific observations that a woman who has been running a complex business for 18 years and who is extremely skilled at reading rooms processed with the quiet efficiency of someone who has been paying attention to things that other people overlook for a very long time. The way Derek positioned himself in relation to Jasmine, the specific quality of his attentiveness toward her versus his attentiveness toward the rest of the table. The way Jasmine's responses to Derek carried a particular ease that does not come from a professional acquaintance. Nicole cataloged these observations in the part of her mind that her 18 years of professional experience had trained to recognize patterns quickly and to know what they meant before the full picture had assembled itself. She knew what they meant. She had her hand on her water glass. She was deciding what she was going to do with what she knew. And then Derek made the decision for her. The specific trigger for what Derek did has been described differently by different witnesses. What is consistent across every account is the essential sequence. Nicole made a professional remark about the event design, a small observation addressed to the table generally. Derek responded with a dismissiveness that several guests described as jarring in its tone, the kind of response that carries within it a history of private dynamics that the public setting suddenly makes visible and that lands differently than the speaker intends because the audience has no context for the register it is pitched at. And then, in a moment that the people who witnessed it have consistently described as feeling disconnected from the normal flow of the evening, as though the ordinary physics of social interaction had been briefly suspended, Derek reached across the table, took hold of Nicole's wig with both hands, lifted it from her head, held it up, and said, loudly enough for the people at adjacent tables to hear, that his wife needed to stop pretending she was something she was not. The table went silent with the specific quality of silence that descends when something has happened that has no appropriate social response, when the usual mechanisms of smoothing and redirecting and moving past do not activate, because what has just occurred is too far outside the boundaries of what those mechanisms were designed to handle. Nicole was bald beneath the wig. This was now visible to every person at the table and to the people at the tables within direct sightline. She sat perfectly still. She reached for her water glass. She took a slow and completely deliberate sip. She set the glass back down with the particular care of someone whose hands are entirely steady. She looked at Derek, and the expression on her face was the expression that every person at that table has since tried to find a word for, and none of them have found a word for, because what it contained was not the shock or the devastation or the public breakdown that the moment seemed designed to produce, but something else entirely. It was the expression of a woman who had been given, in the most unambiguous terms imaginable, the last piece of information she needed to make a decision she had been approaching for a long time. She stayed for 20 minutes after that. She said the appropriate goodbyes. She spoke briefly to the foundation director. She walked out of the ballroom with the composure of a woman leaving an event that had concluded at the appropriate time. She had her phone out before she reached the parking lot. The first call she made was to her business attorney, whose personal cell number she had saved because 18 years of running a business that operated on evenings and weekends had taught her that the moments requiring an attorney's counsel are rarely the moments that fall within regular business hours. She left a message that her attorney has subsequently described as the most organized description of a situation she had ever received from a client at 11 o'clock on a Friday night. She outlined what she needed. She said she would send a follow-up email within the hour with the supporting documentation her attorney would need to begin the work she was describing. She drove home. She sat in the parking garage of the building where she and Derek lived for approximately 15 minutes without going upstairs. Then she sent 4 emails, one to her business attorney, one to her accountant, one to a commercial real estate attorney whose name her business attorney had provided to her in a previous conversation about contingency planning, and one to the HR manager of her own company, requesting a specific set of documents to be prepared and available by Monday morning. Then she went upstairs. Derek was not home. She went to bed. She slept, by her own account, better than she had slept in months. She woke up Saturday morning at 6. She made coffee. She opened her laptop, and she began the 3 months that would leave Derek with exactly nothing. Here is what most people who hear this story focus on first, which is the drama of the gala and the specific act of cruelty that produced it. But the more important thing to understand is the architecture of what Nicole had built and the specific way in which that architecture gave her the capacity to do what she did in the 3 months that followed. Because what she did was not impulsive. It was not reactive in the way that people use the word reactive to mean emotionally driven and therefore imprecise. It was the most precise thing she had ever done in 18 years of building a business that required precision as a condition of its survival. She began with the professional network. 8 of Derek's 12 commercial contracts had originated through introductions or referrals that Nicole had made through her client relationships. The venue where his most significant renovation project was underway was a venue with whom Nicole had a 6-year established relationship. The property management company whose favorable lease terms supported Derek's office operations was run by a principal who had been a client of Nicole's for 4 years. Nicole did not call any of these people and tell them what had happened at the gala. She did not make demands or threats or requests that could in any way be characterized as improper. What she did was have honest professional conversations with her clients and contacts about changes in her business and personal situation, conversations that were truthful and appropriate and that resulted, in each case, in those clients and contacts making their own entirely voluntary decisions about their own business relationships. The venue received information about the renovation project timeline that had not been clearly communicated and made a decision to bring in a different contractor to complete the remaining work. The property management company conducted a standard review of its small commercial tenant leases and determined that Derek's current terms could not be sustained at renewal. The referred clients received calls from Nicole's company about upcoming events that naturally opened conversations about vendor relationships that naturally resulted in those clients choosing to consolidate more of their event-related business within Nicole's company directly. None of this was illegal. None of it was improper. It was a natural consequence of a professional network recalibrating around the person who had built it, once that person had decided to stop directing its benefits towards someone who had snatched her wig off in public, in front of 200 people. Derek did not understand what was happening for the first 4 weeks. The canceled venue contract felt like a project management failure. The lease review notification felt like routine business administration. The shifting of referred clients felt like market fluctuation. It was not until his accountant sat across from him in the 6th week and laid out the financial picture of the previous 45 days that the pattern resolved into something he could not explain away as circumstance. His accountant went through the list of affected relationships one by one, and Derek looked at that list and recognized, one after another, the name of every person on it as someone whose connection to his business had originated through Nicole. Every single one. His accountant, who had known Derek for 7 years, and who had also known Nicole professionally, and who had formed his own views about the situation from what he had observed from the outside over those 7 years, said nothing further after laying out the numbers. He let the numbers speak. Derek drove to Nicole's office. The office manager told him Nicole was not available. He called her cell phone. She did not answer. He sent a message through his own attorney. Her attorney responded within 24 hours with a communication that was measured and professional and that conveyed, without ambiguity, that the appropriate channel for any communication was attorney to attorney and that direct contact was not appropriate at this time. Jasmine ended things with Derek in the 3rd week after the gala, which was approximately the same week that the first of the referred contracts had been canceled and 3 weeks before Derek had fully understood what was happening to his business. She has said that she ended it not in response to external pressure, but in response to her own research. She had gone home from the gala, and she had looked up Nicole's company properly, in a way that she realized she had not done before the relationship began. She had looked at the portfolio and the client list, and the press coverage and the staff page showing 14 employees and the event photographs showing rooms that Nicole had designed and built for 6 years of annual galas at the very venue where she had been sitting that Friday evening. She had sat with what she found for 3 days. Then she called Derek. She said she was done. She said she had been given an incomplete picture of the situation and that the complete picture was not one she was willing to be part of. She has said since that walking away was not a difficult decision once she understood what she was actually involved in. She has also said that she thinks about Nicole sometimes, that she hopes Nicole is well, that the image of Nicole picking up that water glass and taking that slow, deliberate sip and setting it back down is an image she has never been able to fully put out of her mind. She has said it is the most composed thing she has ever watched a human being do. Nicole has not commented publicly on Jasmine. The meeting between Nicole and Derek happened at Nicole's attorney's office in the 7th week, with both attorneys present, at Derek's request communicated through the appropriate legal channel. Derek arrived with the expression of a man who had spent 6 weeks watching the floor of his professional life give way beneath him, and who had come to this meeting hoping to find something to hold on to. Nicole arrived with a folder. She sat across the conference table from a man she had been married to for 12 years. She opened the folder. She placed one document on the table, a single page prepared by her accountant that itemized, in clear and precise language, the financial value of the contributions she had made to their shared life over 12 years of marriage. The down payment on their home, documented. The referred contracts, valued. The professional introductions that had established his lease terms, assessed. The venue relationship that had sustained his largest project, quantified. The aggregate value of Nicole's professional network as it had functioned in support of Derek's business over 12 years, calculated. There was a number at the bottom of the page. She did not say the number aloud. She did not need to. The document was legible and the room was quiet. Derek read it. His attorney read it. Derek put the document down. He looked at Nicole. He said, in the particular voice of a man who has arrived at an understanding that has come too late to change anything, that he was sorry. Nicole looked at him for a moment. She said she knew. Then she told her attorney to proceed. The divorce was filed the following week. 3 months after the gala, the accounting of consequences was complete, and it was comprehensive. Derek's contracting business had lost 8 of its 12 referred commercial contracts through the natural recalibration of the professional network that had produced them. His office lease was in its final 30 days before non-renewal. The renovation project that had been his most significant ongoing work had been completed by a different contractor. The divorce proceedings were underway with full documentation of Nicole's financial contributions to the marriage. The house, where Nicole had made the down payment 9 years earlier, was being addressed through the joint ownership action that Nicole's attorney had filed, with her documented financial contribution establishing her claim with the clarity that documented financial contributions establish claims when they are properly presented to a court. The business that Derek had operated, which had been built on a foundation he had not constructed and had not acknowledged and had not thought to protect, because it had not occurred to him that protection was required, was in a condition that his own accountant described to him as requiring fundamental restructuring. He restructured it. It took 2 years. The restructured version was smaller and had no connection to Nicole's professional network, because Nicole's professional network had no connection to Derek anymore. Nicole's company, in the same 3 months, had continued to operate with the same 14 employees and the same client relationships, and the same waiting list for new clients, and the same annual revenue trajectory that had been growing for 7 consecutive years. She had hired a new lead designer in November to manage the increased direct client work that had come from consolidating relationships previously split between her company and Derek's business. She had been invited to present at a regional event industry conference in January. She had taken on 2 new corporate clients in October, both of whom had come through the same professional network that had always produced her best relationships, which was the network of people who had worked with her and had then told other people about it. The business was built on Nicole. Nicole was still there. Everything the business needed was still there. The gala in September had not changed any of that. The gala in September had only changed what Nicole chose to do with it. She has spoken about what happened with the measured clarity that characterizes everything she says publicly about this period of her life. She has said that the gala was not the beginning of the end of her marriage. She has said it was the moment she stopped pretending the end had not already arrived. She has said that she had understood for some time that Derek did not see what she had built or understand what it had produced for both of them, and that she had told herself for a long time that the right conversation at the right moment would produce the acknowledgement and the reckoning that she needed. She has said that watching him reach across a table she had spent 8 weeks designing and taking something from her head in front of 200 people in a room she had built taught her, in the space of 3 seconds and a glass of water, that the conversation she had been waiting for was not going to come. That what she had been offered instead was the clearest possible evidence that she needed to stop organizing her professional and financial generosity around a person who did not understand its value and act on behalf of the person who did, which was herself. She has said that what she did in the 3 months after the gala was not revenge. Revenge requires a desire to hurt. She did not want to hurt Derek. She wanted to recover what she had given and redirect it toward her own future and her own stability and her own life, which was hers to build and hers to direct and hers alone, as it had always been. She has said the business is doing better than it has ever done. She has said that 14 people showed up to work on a Monday after the gala the same way they showed up every Monday, because the business was built on Nicole and Nicole was still there. And she has said that is the only thing she wants people to understand about this entire story, that she was still there, that she had always been there, and that the only thing that changed was that she finally stopped directing her efforts towards someone who had never fully understood what those efforts were worth. There's a question embedded in Nicole's story that every person who hears it eventually arrives at, And it is not the obvious question about Derek or about what he did or why he thought it was acceptable. Those questions have answers, and the answers are not complicated, and the answers say more about the specific architecture of a particular person's self-regard than they say about anything universal. The question that Nicole's story actually asks is this: how long do we subsidize the version of ourselves that other people have decided we are? How long do we direct the full capacity of what we have built toward people and situations that have never fully reckoned with what they are receiving? And when the moment arrives that makes the answer to those questions impossible to avoid, what do we do with it? Do we perform the breakdown that the moment was designed to produce? Or do we pick up the water glass and take the slow, deliberate sip and set it back down and decide? Nicole decided. And the 3 months that follow the decision are what this story is actually about. Not what was done to her, what she did with it. Tell me in the comments what you think. Have you ever been in a room you built and watched someone take something from you that was not theirs to take? I read every single one. And subscribe to Behind the Lie and turn on that notification bell. Because next time on this channel, we are going into the story of a woman who smiled and said nothing for 17 years while her husband's family called her worthless. What none of them knew was that she had been worth more than all of them combined since the second year of her marriage. And the morning they finally found out was the morning everything changed. We will see you there.